If you're the Texas Rangers and you're Chris Young, you got your man. Yeah, it's a lot, but whatever, you got your guy.
Yeah, just text with Chris Young, former teammate, and congratulatory text there. This is big news. If you're a Texas Ranger fan and knowing what's happening around that ballpark and around that team and has been building, we saw the commitment last year, they are poised and ready to make a run. And I think this goes back to watching what Philadelphia did. Philadelphia squeaked in. You're the third team in your division. We all know the Houston Astros are the class of the AL East. But Anaheim and the Anderson signing, we know what they have brewing in Seattle and Texas. We've got a very, very good big boy division developing. Congrats to Chris Young, Jacob deGrom, game-changing at the top end of your rotation. When you're talking about running Jacob deGrom out versus anyone and the lineup that they currently have, you're favored in any ball game. Texas Rangers are for real.
Yeah, as you said, I think the playoff format changes things because they're not catching the Astros in the West unless it's a miracle. But make the playoffs, as you said, the Phillies example, they can do that. Now their rotation, deGrom changes everything. John Gray's the number 2. Martin Perez is a 3. We've talked with Seager and Simeon in that offense. Like, this changes everything. And I think for deGrom, I understand the first thought is, whew, that's a lot of years for a guy who only pitched 64 innings. But you know this, coming off a major injury, there's risk with every pitcher. Like, it doesn't matter. If deGrom is healthy, this ends up being, if not a steal, obviously a great contract for Texas.
Look, we all know that there's risk around Jacob deGrom in the history of getting him out there. But when you're the Texas Rangers and you're trying to overcome what are the Houston Astros right down the street in your own division, you're trying to build this culture around that connects to Jerry's world and this larger-than-life scene that they've got building deep in the heart of Texas. You go out and you make a bold move that's going to put butts in the seats. We're going to have 48 deGrom jerseys everywhere. Opening day is going to be electric when this guy goes out there. And like I said, when you run Jacob deGrom out there behind a AAA team, you could beat anybody on the planet. This guy gives you a number 1 to now for 5 years be in that clubhouse. Mike Maddox, you think he's excited?
There you go,
veteran pitching coach. I think Bruce Bochy led bunch with the John Grays. We saw what Martin Perez was able to accomplish down there. They're poised, and now you have this bona fide stud leader at the top, and I'm not convinced that they're done.
I think that's the best point you just make. And they're going to make some. You're not spending 185 and going, okay, that's it. No, we got more here in the kitty. We'll make some other moves here. And you're right about. Listen, football is so huge in Texas, but man, they're fighting for baseball supremacy right now. What the Astros have done in Texas, all that money they're investing, it's huge. For those who know deGrom is good, he's a different level of special. What makes him so special?
Well, look, Jacob deGrom has the highest strikeout per 9 in the league, and he has the lowest walk. He strikes out more guys per 9, and he walks the least. He is the best pitcher in the world when he is healthy and doing this right here. Fastball up at the top of the zone at 100+ miles an hour with pinpoint accuracy. Then when it does leak over the plate to Matt Olson, and then off of that, you make Mookie Betts take swings like that. And look at the swing on the slider. I mean, not seeing it. His third pitch is his changeup. He throws it to righties and lefties, and watch this depth on it. Just forget about it. And that's his third pitch. Fourth pitch, he's got a 12-6 curveball that's 15 miles an hour off the 100 miles an hour fastball. This is what I think is going to be interesting to see. Jacob deGrom is so dominant when he's out there, and he's been prone to injury.
Yes.
Can he find ways to get out there at 80-90% and use just 80-90% of that repertoire? Because 80-90%, Adnan, is better than most everybody else in the league when you have that kind of pinpoint accuracy and feel for pitching. It's going to be fun to see him develop and see, you know, how the Rangers plan to keep him healthy, because if he's healthy and he's out there, they're a contending team and something to deal with.
You're close to Bruce Bochy, obviously, of course, your former manager. How does Boch like to deploy his starting pitchers? Is he going to be okay with saying, all right, I just need to 5 and dive, or is he going to figure out a way to say, no, Jake, would you rather have 5 superlative innings at deGrom or 6 2/3 and maybe he gets a little not as strong later in the game? What's Bochy's approach?
Well, Bochy's approach with Chris Young. Chris Young was managed by Bruce Bochy, and Mike Maddox, old school approach too. And these guys are old school, but they've been diving into analytics and numbers as many as they have been for their entire career. They're going to marry analytics with some old school eyes and feel philosophy. And what makes Bruce Bochy so good is that he is going to get to know Jacob deGrom. He's going to know him as a man and personally what he's got going on. He's going to get a feel for him, and he's going to spur you and get the most out of every player in that room. He develops a personal relationship and then understands how to prod and push that on the knowledge that he's gotten with the relationship that he develops with his players.
I want to do like a bad Bochy impression, but I don't want to offend you or him in case he's watching. He just got out there.
Big Boo's excited. He's having a cocktail tonight, I can tell you.
Oh, well,
Cheers, Boch.
Absolutely. Good news for Boch. For the New York Mets, Harold Reynolds is making the point, listen, I know you lost a guy who's a generational talent, an absolute stud, but he barely pitched last year, and you almost won the division. You had the second most wins ever in franchise history. So, yeah, Bassett's a free agent. Taijuan Walker's a free agent. But if you get a healthy Scherzer, make a couple moves, like, this isn't as catastrophic as one might think. How do you view it?
I don't know, Adnan. I know what everybody's saying. Don't panic. But there's no Taijuan Walker on that team.
Correct.
There's no Chris Bassett on that team. There's no Jacob deGrom. And there is Max Scherzer. But the three guys you had stacked up, now you've moved Carrasco into that number 2. They're not done, and they're certainly going to sign a starting pitcher. And they need some help with Diaz back there. But I think the Mets now have to be ultra aggressive. Senga, I know they're in the conversation for. But to me, with all the talk of Philadelphia signing one of those shortstops and what they're going to become when that shortstop falls into that team that we just saw made that run, they're not going anywhere. The Atlanta Braves have been the class of the division in the NL East for quite some time. You just took a big step back for me if you're the New York Mets. And like you said, they have some pieces. The Alonso and Lindor and McNeils are there. You have Marte. There's a core, and Buck Showalter is going to lead. But you got to address this, and you better address it now because there's Senga and there's Rodon, Verlander. There's only 3 guys that can even be talked about in replacing Jacob deGrom in his production. You got to better get moving.
I'm with you because, listen, the Phillies, they're the favorites right now to get Trey Turner. So they get Trey. Suppose the Braves re-sign Dansby Swanson. Now the Mets got to do something major just to keep up with those guys.
That's right. On paper, you're kind of outmanned. And again, let's talk about that pitching in Miami. You might have the 4th, 5th best pitching in the league. Washington's kind of figuring it out.
Yeah.
But you're going to have the 4th strongest pitching staff. That pitching staff in Miami is heavy. So this is a very good NL East. What I love is watching the divisions kind of shake up. But these divisions, as we talked about, the AL East, the NL East, we have a lot of really good divisional baseball. The playoff atmosphere was electric. And now that this other team's in there, I think you're seeing teams like Texas go, hey, we're not far off. We're going to be one of those 6 teams in the playoffs next year.
As a starting pitcher, you must be thrilled. Like, every single guy's market just got lifted up.
Yeah, look, I'm a player. I want these players to get justly compensated. I can tell you this. These owners are wonderful owners. We have a wonderful game. They wouldn't be paying these players if they couldn't afford it. Yeah. Kudos to both sides for doing what they do. And again, Texas Rangers going out and make a bold statement, maybe overpaying a little bit, but to get the best pitcher on the planet, that's what you do. I love it.